And to shed more light on the significance of the first ever summit of Russia-Africa and the Economic Forum, we are very much delighted to have with us over the phone Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former assistant to the Foreign Minister. Ambassador Bayoumi?
Yes, how are you?
How are you, sir? Ambassador Bayoumi, the Sochi summit is meant to open a new chapter of cooperation between Russia and Africa. What does Russia in turn have to offer to the African states in order to show more cooperation and more economic cooperation between Africa and Russia?
This is a mission of multi-phases. The first phase is our president is representing Africa as a chairman of the African Union. Of course, Africa is the second largest continent concerning the population, but it is still the poorest continent in the world.
Yes.
And we are complaining that the money flow from Africa to the developed world is much more than the money it receives.
Of course.
So our task, our president's task, is to market for Africa to get more and more investment, to invest more on projects with the Egyptian experience, with finance coming from the developed world, whether it is Europe, and Europe is accepting this. China declared that they are interested in financing projects in Africa with the help of Egypt. Now our president is just coming from Japan and the TICAD. Here we are in Russia, and we hope that Russia will expand its presence in Africa. And as President Putin mentioned, that the largest partner of Russia in Africa is Egypt, with a trade volume of exceeding $7 billion. This is the first task. Another task is the meeting between our president and the head of states in Africa, especially the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. And we hope that we can come at the end of such meeting with a very friendly solution for what we are discussing with Ethiopia. The third is very important, which is the relation between Egypt and Russia. Russia was once one of the largest partners of Egypt in its trade. Now it is deteriorated since Russia let Egypt aside, since we started the peace process during President Sadat. And it is a pity that we can come and restore this very important market for us. And also we can grant Russia very big market in Egypt of the 100 million inhabitants, of Egypt as a partner in the Arab Free Trade Area, or the European Egyptian Free Trade Area, and also the African Free Trade Area. These are, in brief, the agenda of our president.
Yes. Ambassador Bayoumi, in his speech today, His Excellency President Sisi said that the first Russian-African summit and the Economic Forum are enhancing means of cooperation between Moscow and Africa, and that is pushing forward the 2063 Sustainable Agenda in Africa. How do you see this?
I look at it very positively, and Russia, China, Japan, Europe are now keen to come to Africa much more than they are doing up till now. And of course this will reflect on our relation either with Africa or with the coming new partners from those areas. And this will enhance and improve the quality of life in Africa. But on the other side, this will input a lot of homework we have to face. The transport in Africa must be ameliorated than that. Air transport must cover all the capitals. The ports in Africa need to be enlarged much more than it is going ahead now. We are dreaming of the road from West Alexandria up till South Africa. Many things we have to do. Banking system needs a very good push in order to ameliorate it. So
Yes.
Africa has a lot also to do in order to attract more and more partnership and investment from the first world.
Sir, President Sisi also referred to Africa's keenness in integration, highlighting the significance of investment in human resources, notably that the youth in Africa are representing about 65% of the population. What's your take on that, and how actually we could invest in the human resources in the Black continent?
This is very important because Africa, like Egypt, is a young continent. Egypt also is a young country. The majority of our population are young people. This means that we are going to increase in inhabitants. We are going to need more and more of creating jobs, more and more trade, more and more investment. But as I said, we have to do our homework also in order to be able to absorb whatever finance can come to us, because it's not the money which we lack. We need money, but we need also to work more and more seriously.
Yes. Ambassador Bayoumi, of course, Sochi is hosting the first Russian-African summit, the first full-scale top-level meeting. What has the Sochi summit can offer to the African states? To what extent the African states actually could benefit from such a meeting and gathering, and to what extent we could actually set the mechanisms in order to implement on the ground these achievements or the decisions that or the agreements that are going to be implemented?
We can make more and more marketing for our continent, for more investment, more trade, and don't forget that half of the Arab world are Africans in the north of Africa.
Yes.
Also, on the dimension of the Arab world, Africa can benefit. And this is a serious task. We are able to do it, inshallah.
Yes.
And I hope that such meetings take place every now and then, because you can solve a lot of problems and you can drag sort of agenda for the future whenever you have a summit like that.
Yes, indeed.
Because the summit diplomacy is much more quicker, and it can put solutions for whatever we are need. It can put agendas for the future. This is very important, and Egypt really is in a good place in order to host or to lead such efforts.
Yes. Ambassador Bayoumi, we cannot deny that Africa actually is facing, rather Russia is facing great rivalry in Africa from China, from many European countries. How can Russia compete with such big powers in order to gain a good share of the African market?
The continent is very large. We are talking about 51 countries, and we are talking about few partners. And I think that with 1,200 million inhabitants in this continent, everybody can compete, and there is always enough room for everybody in order to cooperate. And Africa is still very junior partner concerning international trade, and we can expand this in trade and investment, in investing on the inhabitants. I mean here the empowerment of women and training the young generation and education. Many things are on the agenda there.
Finally, sir, also the European Union representative gave his statement during the summit, during which he asserted the significance of boosting ties between Africa and Russia, as well as other European countries. Do you expect to see more cooperation between Africa, Europe, and Russia? Ambassador Bayoumi? I do believe that we have lost our contact with Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi. Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former assistant to the foreign minister. Thank you very much, sir, for being our guest and for your precious input. And President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and Russian President Vladimir Putin discussed the latest developments regarding resuming Russian flights to Egypt's tourist destinations. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassem Radi said the summit comes within the framework of the comprehensive partnerships and the strategic cooperation agreements inked between Egypt and Russia, and the keenness of both countries to promote cooperation and consultations on issues of mutual.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said that the upcoming first ever Russian-African summit reflects historic friendship ties between the African countries and the Russian Federation. In a message to participants in the forum, the president said that Russian-Africa Summit, which is taking place on Sochi on the 23rd and 24th of October 2019, encapsulates the historically friendly relations between the African continent and the Russian Federation. He added that this summit carries great significance as it is the first global and international transformations. In response to the aspirations of the people it is representing, the summit intends to build a comprehensive framework for expanding Russian-African relations into broader horizons of joint cooperation across different fields. The head of state went on to say that the African nations and Russia share a common understanding of international relations based on their principles of respect for the rule of international law, equality, non-interference in the internal affairs of states, and the peaceful resolutions of disputes. Both sides affirmed their commitment to support multilateral actions to oppose new international threats, be they terrorism and extremism in all their forms or declining growth rates. The two sides share a firm conviction regarding the importance of developing trade flows and supporting mutual investment in such a way as to ensure security, peace and development for the African and Russian people. African countries have huge potential and opportunities. Them once effort to streamline their economies have been achieved to emerge as real global players. In recent years, the nations of this continent have achieved major successes spanning the political, economic, social, and administrative spheres. Africa has flourished in terms of growth over the past decade, reaching a continent-wide growth rate of 3.55% in 2019. Africa has flourished in terms of growth over the past decade, reaching a continent-wide growth rate of 3.55% in 2018.